Ladies and gentlemen, consider for a moment what truly happens when you close your eyes each night. In those quiet hours, your mind holds a gentle power. It can either weave a tapestry of peace and healing, or it can simply replay the day's weariness. What if this nightly pause was not just a necessity, but one of your most profound tools for quiet transformation? We often think of sleep as a simple automatic process. The day ends, tiredness arrives, and we rest. Yet there is a deeper truth. The quality of your sleep gently colors the quality of your entire life. It influences the calm you feel upon waking, the energy that carries you through your day, the clarity of your thoughts, and the resilience of your... Sleep can be a soft internal massage, releasing natural healing like melatonin, not just for rest, but for renewal. And the most peaceful part, it asks not for special tools, but only for your gentle awareness, the hidden power of sleep. To truly understand sleep is to look beyond its surface, to see it not as a blank void of unconsciousness, but as a deeply active and intelligent process of renewal. It is the most natural and profound reset mechanism we possess. A daily opportunity for the entire system of body and mind to engage in a silent, meticulous restoration. Imagine the most diligent custodian working through the night in a vast and complex library. While the world is dark and quiet, this custodian moves through the aisles, reshelving the books of the day's experiences, dusting the shelves of memory, and repairing the worn bindings of your thoughts. This is the hidden work of sleep. It is not an absence of activity, but a different, more essential kind of work. The waking mind is for gathering, for experiencing, for engaging with the external world. The sleeping mind is for integrating, for sorting, for making sense of the collection. It separates the trivial from the significant, the emotional charge from the neutral event, and it weaves the threads of your day into the larger tapestry of your life. Without this process, the mind would simply become a cluttered room filled with the unresolved and the unprocessed, until there's no space left for new experiences, no clarity for new thoughts. This restorative process operates on every level of your being. Physically, it is a time of accelerated repair. The body produces growth hormone, which mends tissues, builds muscle, and strengthens the immune system. The energy that is typically directed outward towards movement and interaction is turned inward towards maintenance and healing. It is a nightly tune-up, ensuring that the complex machinery of the body continues to run smoothly. On a mental level, the brain engages in a process called synaptic pruning. Think of the day's thoughts and learning as creating new pathways, like walking through a field of tall grass and creating new trails. During sleep, the brain strengthens the important frequently used pathways, solidifying learning and memory, and allows the less significant ones to fade away, preventing overload and maintaining cognitive efficiency. It is the mind's way of organizing its own filing system, ensuring that what is important is accessible and what is not is gently set aside. This is why a problem that seems insurmountable at midnight can feel manageable by dawn. The chaotic jumble of anxieties and frustrations has been sorted through. The emotional intensity has been dialed down. The perspective has been cleared, and what remains is the essence of the issue, often with a newfound quiet clarity. This transformation of perspective is perhaps one of sleep's greatest. It is a natural alchemist turning the latent weight of daily stress into the lighter metal of understanding. When you surrender to sleep with awareness, you are not simply powering down a machine. You are participating in this alchemy. You are allowing the conscious worrying planning part of your mind to step aside and grant access to the deeper, wiser processing part of yourself. This is why it can be viewed as a form of meditation. You practice observing your thoughts without getting caught in their current. You create space. Sleep is the ultimate expression of that space. It is a state where the constant narration of the self recedes and a more fundamental state of being takes over. It is a return to source. To honor sleep, then, is to honor this process. It is to create the conditions for this inner custodian to do its best work. It is to understand that by investing in the quality of your rest, you are not being passive or unproductive. You are engaging in the most vital activity for long-term resilience, clarity, and peace. You are not just resting for the night, you are building the foundation for the day to come and indeed for all the days that follow. This hidden power is always available every night. A silent partner in your well-being, waiting only for your recognition and cooperation to perform its gentle transformative work. Why the mind refuses to rest at night? There is a profound and often frustrating paradox that many encounter. When the day is done and the body is weary, the mind, instead of settling into the quietude of night, decides to launch into its most active and chaotic performance. The body is pleading for rest, heavy with fatigue. But the mind is a whirlwind of replays, previews, and commentaries. It clutches at the conversations of the day, analyzing a tone of voice or a choice of words. It races ahead to tasks of tomorrow, constructing elaborate scenarios of what might go wrong or what must be perfectly achieved. It is as if the conscious mind, whose job it is to navigate the waking world, refuses to clock out. It stands at its post, vigilant and anxious, interpreting the silence and darkness not as a signal to stand down, but as a blank canvas upon which to project every unresolved thought and unaddressed worry. This is not a personal failing or a unique flaw. It is the result of a mind that has been trained for action and has not yet learned the art of surrender. This refusal to rest is fundamentally a matter of momentum. Throughout the day, the mind is conditioned to move at a certain pace, to solve problems, to respond to stimuli, to engage in a constant stream of doing. When the external world suddenly becomes still and dark, the internal world does not automatically match that new pace. It has its own inertia. It is like a flywheel that has been spinning at high speed all day. It cannot stop instantaneously. It continues to spin, generating its own energy long after the external engine has been shut off. The thoughts that arise are the energy of that spinning flywheel. They are not necessarily important or true. They are simply the residual momentum of a mind that has not been given the time or the space to wind down gradually. Furthermore, the content of these thoughts often revolves around elements of a lack of control. The mind replays moments where it felt embarrassed or vulnerable, situations it wishes it could control retroactively. It prelays future events, attempting to control outcomes through worry and rehearsal. In the quiet of the night, the illusion of control is stripped away, and the mind's frantic activity is often a resistance to this reality, a last-ditch effort to maintain a sense of command over a universe that is, in those hours, entirely out of its hands. The environment of the modern world exacerbates this natural momentum. We are constantly connected, constantly feed information. The blue light from our screens mimics daylight, tricking the brain into believing it is still time for alertness. The endless scroll of news and social media provides an infinite source of fuel for the anxious mind. We bring this stimulation right up to the moment we try to close our eyes, and then we wonder why the mind will not switch off. It is like revving a car's engine in the garage and then being surprised it is still making noise when you turn the ignition off. The transition from high stimulation to deep rest is not a switch. It is a slope. It requires a gradual descent. Without this descent, the body lies down in bed, but the mind is still running its marathon. The physical self is in a place of rest, but the mental self is still navigating the traffic of the day. This disconnect is what leads to the experience of waking up as tired as one went to bed. The body may have been stationary, but the mind was not at rest. It was engaged in a phantom workday, draining energy without producing anything of value. It is a sleep of the body, but not of the mind. True restorative sleep requires both entities to be present in the same quiet place. And this can only happen when the mind is gently, patiently, and deliberately guided away from its momentum and into a state of receptive calm, learning that its most important task at the end of the day is to finally gracefully let go. The secret link between stillness and melatonin. We often speak of melatonin as a key that unlocks the gate to sleep, and this is true, but it is not a key we simply possess. It is a key we must learn to forge through our own state of being. The common understanding is that darkness triggers its release, and this is the first signal, but it is only the first. Darkness tells the body that the sun has gone down, that the external world has shifted, but it does not by itself inform the body that the internal world must follow. The body is a sophisticated instrument designed to respond not just to the environment, but to the state of the being that inhabits it. It listens to the quality of your presence. When you lie in bed in the dark, but your mind is ablaze with the light of 100 thoughts, your body receives a mixed message. The eyes report darkness, but the nervous system humming with electrical activity from anxiety and rumination reports a state of high alert. It reports that you are still in the field, so to speak, that danger or urgency is present, that the time for vigilance is not over. In this state of internal conflict, the pineal gland, the wise producer of melatonin, hesitates. It withholds its gentle elixir because it is waiting for a consensus. It is waiting for the internal state to match the external one. It is waiting for stillness. Stillness then is the second and more important signal. It is the internal darkness. It is the quiet that must descend upon the mind and the nervous system for the body to truly understand that the time for restoration has begun. This stillness is not a passive state of simply doing nothing. It is an active state of release. It is the conscious and deliberate letting go of the day's tensions, the unwinding of the mental coils that have been wound tight through hours of engagement. Think of it as settling the sediment in a glass of muddy water. The water represents your mind. The swirling sediment is your thoughts, your worries, your plans. You cannot force the sediment to settle by striking the glass or willing it to stop. You must simply set the glass down and be still. In that perfect patient stillness, the sediment begins to settle on its own accord and the water becomes clear. This clarity is the signal the body has been waiting for. This is when the pineal gland understands that all is well, that the watch can be stood down and it can begin its sacred duty of secreting melatonin into the bloodstream. This hormone then flows like a gentle tide, washing over the brain and the body, lowering the core temperature, slowing the heart rate and damping down the arousal of the nervous system. It is the chemical embodiment of permission to rest. But that permission is granted only when you have first granted it to yourself through your own cultivated stillness. Therefore, the journey to deep restorative sleep is not about chasing melatonin. It is about creating the conditions for it to arise naturally. It is about becoming a conductor of your own internal environment. The practices that foster this are practices of alignment. A slow, deliberate breath is not just a breathing exercise, it is a powerful message to the entire organism. The breath is uniquely positioned as a function that is both automatic and under our voluntary control by taking charge of it by slowing it down. We use it as a tool to broadcast a message of safety to every cell. We are telling the body through the language of physiology that we are not running, we are not fighting. The heart receives this message and slows its pace. The muscles receive it and unclench. The brain receives it and begins to quiet its frantic chatter. And the pineal gland receives this collective sigh of relief and responds in kind, releasing the melatonin that deepens this state into true healing sleep. This is the secret link. It is a conversation between your conscious intention and your body's innate wisdom. The hormone is not the cause of sleep. It is the reward for having created the inner peace that sleep requires. It is the gift that follows the act of stillness, not the prize we obtain before we have done the work. So tonight, do not seek sleep. Do not seek melatonin. Seek stillness. Inhabit the quiet. Breathe into the darkness behind your eyes and trust that your body knows what to do when you finally provide it with the correct conditions to listen to its own profound intelligence. The brain massage you can't. There is a profound and often overlooked truth that the most powerful healing modalities are not always something done to us, but something that moves through us, generated from within by our own capacity for awareness. We think of a massage as an external application of pressure, a skilled work on the muscles from the outside in, but the nervous system, the very core of our perception of stress and peace, is not accessible to external hands. It is a deeply internal network, a universe of electrical impulses and chemical signals that governs everything from our heart rate to our most fleeting thought. To soothe this system requires a different approach, an internal massage. This is not a metaphor. It is a physiological reality, and the instrument of this massage is nothing more nor less than the breath. The breath is the bridge between the conscious and the autonomic, the voluntary and the involuntary. When we bring our conscious attention to it and guide it into a slow, deep and rhythmic pattern, we are essentially taking the hand of our own awareness and gently placing it upon the agitated nervous system, stroking it, calming it, and persuading it that the time for alarm has passed. This process works because the breath is intimately tied to the state of the nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, which governs the fight or flight response, is associated with short, shallow, rapid breaths high in the chest. It is the breath of panic, of urgency. Conversely, the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest, digestion, and repair, is associated with long, slow, deep breaths that engage the diaphragm and fill the belly. This is the breath of contentment, of safety. You cannot directly command your nervous system to switch from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance. You cannot simply tell your body to stop producing stress hormones, but you can consciously choose the type of breath that is the native language of the parasympathetic system. By doing so, you speak to the body in a tongue it understands implicitly. You are using the breath as a linguistic key to unlock a state of calm. Each deep, slow inhalation is like a gentle press on a specific point of tension within the system. Perhaps the anxiety about tomorrow, perhaps the residue of a today's frustration. Each long, complete exhalation is the release of that specific knot of energy. With every cycle of breath, you are kneading out the tension, softening the hard edges of the day's experiences, and encouraging the entire system to unwind, to let go, to expand. When practiced in the quiet moments before sleep, this internal massage becomes a powerful ritual of transition. It is the deliberate act of shifting gears from the velocity of the day to the stillness of the night. The mind, which often refuses to rest because it is caught in the momentum of thought, is given a single, simple, repetitive point of focus. The sensation of the breath moving in and out of the body. This focus acts as an anchor, preventing the mind from being swept away by the currents of worry and planning. The rhythmic nature of the breath becomes a lullaby for the conscious mind, soothing it into a state of quiet receptivity. As the nervous system is calmed through this internal massage, the body follows, the heart rate slows, the blood pressure lowers, and the muscles relax deep. The brain waves begin to change their pattern, moving from the busy beta waves of waking thought to the calmer alpha waves of relaxation, and eventually toward the theta and delta waves of deep sleep. This is the ultimate purpose of the unseen brain massage, to prepare the entire being not for a forced unconsciousness, but for a graceful and natural descent into the healing waters of sleep. It is a practice of using your own awareness channeled through the breath to become the healer of your own mind, to give yourself the gift of a peace that is earned not from external sources but generated from within. A quiet and powerful force that guides you home to yourself. Night after night are how stress blocks the night's healing power. To understand how stress acts as a barrier to sleep's healing power, we must first redefine what sleep truly offers. It is not merely a sensation of activity, it is an active state of immersion into a restorative medium. Much like stepping into a pool of clean, clear water designed to wash away the metabolic and mental debris of the day. This water represents the complex physiological processes of sleep, the circulation of cerebrospinal fluid that cleanses the brain, the release of growth hormone that repairs tissue, the consolation of memory that organizes thought. Stress in its physiological form is the oil that pollutes this water. It is a chemical reality, a cascade of hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that create a surface film on this pool of restoration. You may submerge yourself in the water for 8 hours, but if it is coated with this oily film of stress chemistry, the healing properties cannot penetrate your skin. The water runs off you and you emerge unquenched, unwashed, still carrying the grit and fatigue of the previous day. This is the fundamental blockage, a biological incompatibility between the state of high alert that stress creates and the state of receptive surrender that deep sleep demands. This state of alertness is the body's ancient survival mechanism. It is designed to prioritize immediate danger over long-term repair. When the stress response is activated, blood flow is diverted to the large muscles for fighting or fleeing, not to the gut for digestion or to the brain for cleansing. Digestion, cell repair, and cognitive maintenance are deemed non-essential luxuries in a moment of perceived crisis. The problem in the modern world is that our perception of crisis is It is triggered not by a saber-toothed tiger, but by an overflowing inbox, a troubling news headline, or a remembered argument. The body does not distinguish the source, it only responds to the signal. So when you lie in bed churning over the day's events, you are essentially whispering a constant warning to your primal brain. You are telling it the tiger is still here. It is in the room, Remain vigilant, and the body obeys. It keeps the cortisol flowing. It maintains a state of readiness. It therefore sees the onset of sleep not as a welcome relief, but as a dangerous vulnerability. It resists the descent into unconsciousness because from its primitive perspective, to lose awareness is to be eaten. This is the great irony. In trying to solve problems by worrying about them at night, you are instructing your own biology to block the very thing that would give you the clarity and strength to solve them in the morning. A restful, healing night's sleep. The path through this is not to eliminate stress, which is an impossible task, but to consciously complete the stress cycle before you approach the threshold of sleep. The body needs to receive a signal that the tiger is gone, that the crisis has passed. This signal cannot be a thought. It must be an action, a physiological command. This is where the practice of release becomes critical. The breath, once again, is the most direct lever we have. A long, slow exhalation is a powerful trigger for the parasympathetic nervous system. It is a biological command that says the threat is over. You can stand down. Engaging in a simple ritual like writing down your worries on a piece of paper and physically setting it aside on a bedside table is not a symbolic gesture. It is a concrete act of transferring the burden from the mind where it activates stress chemistry to the external world where it can be dealt with tomorrow. It is the act of closing the file for the evening. This moment of letting go is the equivalent of breaking the oily film on the surface of the water. It is what allows the healing properties of sleep to finally make contact. The barrier dissolves not because your problems have been solved, but because you have chosen for these precious hours to stop adding new stress chemistry to your system and to instead actively cultivate the chemistry of safety. You are not ignoring the storm. You are simply choosing to step inside the shelter and allow it to pass, trusting that you will be better equipped to face it after a night of true renewal, turning the bedroom into a place of renewal. The space in which you sleep is far more than a utilitarian location for a bed. It is the primary environment that your subconscious mind will associate with the act of restoration. Every object, every source of light, every speck of dust carries a message, and your nervous system is listening to this message constantly, even in sleep. A cluttered room with piles of unfolded laundry, stacks of unpaid bills, or the blue glow of an electronic device speaks a language of incompletion, obligation, and alertness. It tells the primal part of your brain that work is unfinished, that attention is required, that this is not a place of absolute safety because tasks remain. The mind therefore remains partially engaged, like a soldier trying to sleep on a battlefield, ears training for the next sign of danger. It cannot fully surrender. To turn the bedroom into a sanctuary is to consciously change this language. It is to curate an environment that speaks only of safety, peace, and permission to let go. This is not an act of interior decoration. It is an act of physiological priming. You are architecting a space that actively collaborates with your goal of deep sleep rather than passively hindering it. This process begins with the removal of that which does not serve rest. This is a practice of subtraction before it is one of addition. Each item removed is a potential stressor eliminated. The television, the laptop, the work documents, these are not mere objects. They are anchors to your waking life of doing. Their presence creates a subtle but persistent pull on your awareness, a reminder of a world that demands your engagement. Removing them is an act of defining a boundary. It is the physical declaration that past this door. The world of productivity and problem solving ceases to exist. The same is true for clutter. Visual chaos creates cognitive chaos. A scattered environment reflects and reinforces a scattered mind. The simple act of putting things away, of creating clear, clean surfaces, is a form of external order that invites internal order. It is like smoothing the surface of a lake so that it may become calm and reflective. This creates a sense of perceptual ease, allowing the nervous system to relax because it is not being bombarded by unresolved visual stimuli. The space begins to feel contained, secure, and simple. Three qualities that are essential for the vulnerable state of sleep. Once the space has been cleared of distractions, it can then be imbued with positive signals that actively promote tranquility. This is the practice of addition. Lighting is perhaps the most powerful tool. Harsh overhead lights mimic the midday sun and signal alertness. Soft, warm, dimmable lamps or even candlelight in the evening mimic the gentle descent of dusk and signal the pineal gland to begin its production of melatonin. The quality of air is another signal. A stuffy, stagnant room feels heavy and lethargic. Fresh circulating air, perhaps lightly scented with something natural like lavender or sandalwood, which are traditionally associated with calm, tells the body it is in a clean, life-supporting environment. The tactile experience of the space is equally important. Rough synthetic textures can subconsciously agitate, while soft natural fabrics like cotton, linen or wool comfort the skin and promote a sense of being nurtured. Finally, the soundscape must be considered. The goal is not necessarily utter silence, which can sometimes feel oppressive, but the absence of jarring, unpredictable noise, the gentle hum of an air purifier, the distant sound of rain from a sound machine, or simply the quiet of the night. These consistent soft sounds provide an auto-right blanket that smothers the sharp noises that might startle you awake. By thoughtfully crafting this environment, you are essentially building a cocoon. You are creating a physical manifestation of the inner peace you seek. When you enter this room, you are not just walking into a different location. You are crossing a threshold into a different state of being. The room itself becomes a partner in your practice, a silent guide that helps your body and mind remember night after night how to let go, how to be still, and how to receive the profound healing that is your birthright. The ancient art of letting go before sleep. The transition from day to night is not merely a change in the sun's position. It is a profound psychological and spiritual crossing that requires a conscious rite of passage. We would not attempt to step into a sacred temple without first removing the mud from our shoes. And yet we often attempt to step into the sacred temple of sleep without first clearing the debris from our minds. The art of letting go is this essential act of preparation. It is the recognition that the mind after a full day of engagement is like a hand that has been clenched tightly around various objects, responsibilities, conversations, worries, plans. To simply lie down and expect sleep to ask a hand to relax while it is still full. The muscles cannot truly let go because they are still shaped around the forms they are holding. The first step then is to consciously open the hand and empty it. This is not an act of abandonment or irresponsibility, it is an act of profound trust. It is the trust that the objects will be there in the morning if they need to be picked up again, and the deeper trust that the act of release itself will transform your relationship to them, making them lighter, less solid, less demanding of your life force. A powerful method is the practice of externalization. The mind is designed to hold information, but when that information is charged with emotional energy, it loops endlessly, fearing it will be forgotten. By writing it down on a physical piece of paper, you perform a magic trick of perception. You cannot command a seed to grow by shining a bright light on it and shouting instructions. You must place it gently in the soil, cover it over and let the dark, mysterious processes of nature take over. The conscious mind plants the seed with a gentle thought. The difference between these mornings is not found in the alarm clock, but in the invisible architecture of the sleep that preceded it. A night of peaceful deep rest is like a gentle and skilled artisan working on the raw material of your being. You are ensuring that you greet the dawn not as a weary soldier already defeated by the prospect of battle, but as a sovereign well rested and ready to meet whatever the day holds with a full reservoir of grace and fortitude. Each one deposits a brick onto the wall of tension you carry. If you never pause to remove those bricks, by the time night arrives, you are staring at an intimidating fortress.